Baptiste on AM 970 WSTX. Your host, Norman John Baptiste, here with you this morning. I'm also known as Bapo. And it's good to be here with you this morning. Beautiful, sunny, bright day here on the island of St. Croix. And I dare say, across the chain of Caribbean islands, we're experiencing bright sunshine this Monday morning. We're just gradually, slowly moving towards the end of this month, and by next week, Monday, we're into the month of February. Interesting. Lots of developments taking place, not just here locally, but on a regional basis, national basis, and international basis. We have many things to contend with that don't exactly make us feel comfortable. You know, these things make us more so a bit anxious, if I may. But before we get into all of these things, I want to just simply state that I'm so thankful for the gift of life, because life is such a loving experience, notwithstanding all the difficulties, the challenges, the hardships we seem to encounter. In spite of it all, life is beautiful. I run into some moments in this life that I just wish those moments could last forever. You know, absolutely mind-boggling. Takes the breath away when you see some of the beauty and some of the interactions that take place among species. We were often presented with an image where the predator preys upon the prey, and when you see an eagle snatch a dove sometimes, or snatch a rabbit, you wonder why. But it's a part of this mix here. It has become that way, and I think I have some good reasons. Well, I've come across some good reasons as to why the matrix is how it is at this present point in time. But eventually it's going to change. And I think even in the Bible, there's a saying that, they will no longer hurt each other in the Lord's holy mountain, but the lion is going to lay down with the calf. The child will put its hand in the other's nest, and nothing will happen. None will hurt another. So we look forward to that time. But meanwhile, I am thankful for the gift, and I want to thank the Creator Most High, the source, as some of us say, for the gift of life and all the beautiful things that I personally have experienced and enjoyed in this experience called life, on this journey, this earthbound journey. There have been so many happy moments, joyous moments, beautiful times, and lovely, spectacular things to behold. So I'm thankful for that. Having said that, I want us to take a look at some things that have been happening here at home on the island of St. Croix, in the wider Caribbean area, and even on an international level. Now, I want to say, folks, I want to discuss some uncomfortable truths with you this morning. And before I delve into that, I want to make a statement that, generally in the Caribbean areas, especially the Caribbean islands, which were formerly British colonies, as well as a few others, like say, for example, Martinique, Guadeloupe, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Haiti, that had a different colonial experience. But by and large, we are all Africans in the diaspora. We share a common ancestry. And even our present situation has a lot that binds us together, as opposed to the little that tends to separate us. And so in this mix, I want us to take a serious look at what is going on, acknowledging that we are indeed descendants of Africans who were brought here. And so we are, truthfully, Africans, away from Mother Africa and living in the diaspora. And so we have to ask ourselves, who really are the African people. Who really are we? And here is what I want to submit to you. I mentioned that on a program. I have a program every Friday night, and I mentioned that on Friday night's program, that there is a prophecy in Deuteronomy chapter 28. And that prophecy refers to no other group of people, no other race of people, but Africans. And it's in the Bible. In the Old Testament, in the book of Deuteronomy, and it's in chapter 28. You can take a look at that, where it speaks about the persons being referred to in that particular chapter. It speaks of them being brought into slavery in ships or on ships, if I may. And so, against that backdrop, I look at what is happening here, and I look at the island of St. Croix, where I'm currently living. And St. Croix is the only island that I know of which is named after the cross. Because St. Croix really means Saint Cross. And so this island called St. Croix is very special. Besides that, I understand that it is located on a shelf that is not exactly connected to the rest of the Caribbean island chain. It sits sort of like, apart from them. So I see that the island of St. Croix is very special. Perhaps has a very significant role to play in these end times that we're living in. And when I say end times, I'm not referring to the end of the world that some people like to speak of, because I don't know if the world is going to end per se. I generally embrace the concept of the end of the age. And I think we're living through the end of the age, and it behooves us rather that we as people who live on this island, St. Croix, need to pay attention to that and to understand the role that we have to play in this matrix, and especially at this point in time. Now, and of course, I'm certain you know that I personally make a connection between the cross and Yeshua the Messiah. What the cross means to believers in Yeshua the Messiah. Now, I know some say that Messiah wasn't really crucified and that there was a whole conspiracy and somebody else took his place and all of that. I don't buy into that, because there are prophetic writings about the Messiah that tell us that he was going to come. Besides the prophecy of Genesis chapter 3 and verse 15, in Genesis chapter 12, the Most High tells Abraham that in his seed, all the families of the earth will be blessed. And by the way, I'm not a preacher. I'm simply an individual. I read, I do some research, I listen to what others have to proffer, and I see how I can use that to my benefit and to the benefit of others. But anyway, to continue, there is that prophecy when the Most High has an encounter with Abraham. And then on top of that, besides the prophecy of Genesis 15, further on in the book of Genesis, Abraham is asked to to sacrifice his only son, Isaac. And he goes to the mount, unless I'm mistaken, I think it is Mount Moriah. He goes there to sacrifice his only son to the true, highest Elohim or creator. And so at that time, when he's about to use the knife to strike the child and to, carry out the sacrifice, an angel stays his hand and asks him not to harm the child, and then points to him that there is a ram caught in the thicket that should be a replacement for the child. And that whole story there is a foreshadowing of the coming Messiah, where the Most High would sacrifice his only son, meaning the only son begotten in the flesh, to become a propitiation for the sins of humanity, all of us, not some, but all, not the chosen ones, but all of mankind get the blessings through Yeshua, who is seed of Abraham. And so We look at these things, and then you come to the book of Psalms, where clearly, I think it is in Psalm 22, it tells you exactly what would have happened to Messiah in terms of the crucifixion, the parting of his garments for lots, etc. Then you jump into the book of Isaiah, where in the book of Isaiah, in chapter 7 and chapter 9, we are told of a son being born to a young woman, the government being upon his shoulders, etc. All of this in reference to the Messiah. And then as you move further further on in the book of Isaiah, you come to Isaiah chapter 53, where you're given the picture of the suffering Messiah, Yeshua, who we're told that, he's rejected and despised. He's a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. Yet it pleased the Lord to bruise him and put him to the shame of the death on a cross. And it tells you that he was wounded for our transgressions, he was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement for our sin was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed. All of us have been led astray, but he's the one chosen to bring us grace, to bring us salvation. And in the book of Jeremiah, I think it's Jeremiah 20, chapter 23, I think it is, or 25, where it tells you that a righteous branch would be raised up, and this is his name whereby he would be called the Lord, our righteousness. And so we have all of this from the Old Testament pointing to Messiah. Now there are some passages I did not mention, but that make reference to him, to include where he is referred to as the high priest after the order of Melchizedek. And Melchizedek is a high priest who was king of Salem, that many of us have not taken time to do research about. We know very little about, but in the book of Hebrews, Paul picks up on that and ties the priesthood of Yeshua to this figure, Melchizedek, the king of Salem, unto whom Father Abraham paid tithes. It's amazing that across the pages of the Old Testament, coming right down into the New Testament, we have so many scriptures written by different authors, and they all testify of this one individual. And when this individual does appear on the scene, he has a message that is so pure, so enlightening, so all-encompassing, that he teaches us to have love for the Creator Most High, and love for one another. And he presents that love to us in so many different ways, where he tells us to love our enemies, to bless those who curse us, to pray for those who despitefully use us and abuse us. Amen. And then he says it in another instance where he says that we should do unto others as we would have them do unto us. And yet in another place, he comes around dealing with a woman who was taken in adultery, and the hypocrites who present the woman to him, saying she was caught in the very act. They brought the woman without the man, but it takes two to tango to get into the act of adultery. So why you bring the woman and not the man? And Yeshua says to them, and they said to Yeshua, the commandment is that such should be stoned to death. And Yeshua says, well, that's all right. I don't have a problem with it. That's indeed what the writings say. But let me tell you, let the one who is without sin cast the first stone. And they were so pricked that they all walked away, left the woman there with Messiah. And then Messiah turns to her and says, where are your accusers? And she says, sir, I'm the only one left here. They've all left. She said, okay, neither do I condemn you. Neither do I condemn you. Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more. And in one of his prayers that he presented to us, folks, the Lord's Prayer, I tried to recite that 3 times in succession, in English, in French, and in Spanish. But in that prayer, it says, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And so here is the problem, my folks, brothers and sisters on the island of St. Croix and in the broader Caribbean area. We got some problems. We got a serious problem of our failure to recognize what is wrong, what is not right, what is unrighteous, what is, if I may use an expression, transgression of the commandments, the laws of the Creator. We got a problem. And it is now time for us to admit that we have a problem. And we got to do something about the problem. To abandon the ways of moral degeneracy. Because yes, there is a moral compass. We got to come to the realization that we're not walking uprightly, we're not walking in a circumspect manner. And we got to be determined to make a change, to make a difference. Some may disagree with me, and I'm not necessarily here to ensure that everyone agrees with me, but I think we can disagree in a respectful manner. I don't mind people challenging me as long as the challenge comes in a respectful format. I don't have a problem with it. But let me share this with you. There are some who hate me. There are some who hate me. And those who hate me come from different parts, various roots, not necessarily white folk. Some white folk don't like me. Some white folk hate me. There are some black folk who don't like me and hate me. Some of the people who hate me were born on the same island where I was born. Some of them were born on other Caribbean islands. But you know what? The love I have for all of them is far greater than the hatred they have for me. I want to repeat that. The love I have for those who hate me, that love is far greater, far superior than the hatred that they have for me. And that puts me in a good place. Because then I know that I can use the principles taught by the Messiah to deal with such circumstances. And so I'm going to do what I feel compelled to do by forces I have not even seen. You know, just an unction, a feeling that tells me that I should do certain things and say certain things. So I do and I say. If I may, folks, if I may, and I'm going to upload or download a lot this morning. But if I may, I want to share with you. I say these things because of things that I observe around. Last week, we run into a situation where two young Virgin Islanders were convicted. Well, they had been convicted earlier on of fraudulent activity, but they were sentenced to 5 years plus in prison, to spend the next 5 years in prison for getting involved in some fraudulent dealings, if I may. They apparently run afoul of the law. And I listened to people who were gloating over that situation. You know, it is sad how we are in this place. People who seem to take joy in the fact that two of our brothers run afoul of the law, and now they've been convicted and sentenced to serve approximately 5 years in a federal prison. Wrong comes in so many different shapes and forms. And sometimes some of us who are quick to judge and condemn, we're ignoring the faults that we have. That's why Messiah, again, I go back to Messiah. Messiah said, besides saying, let him who is without sin cast the first stone, he presents a picture where he tells you, before you see a speck in your brother's eye, and you want to ask your brother to remove the speck, check the beam that is in your own eye. That's why I've got some difficulty in terms of judging anybody with an attitude or a view to condemnation. I try to stay away from that. Nonetheless, it is what it is. We are in this matrix, and the matrix involves opposites, up and down, night and day, big and small, and all of these things. So that's how it is in the matrix. All right. So on this island here, there is violence. It is like the parents have eaten sour grapes and the children's teeth are on edge. Who's to blame? Well, some will tell you the children have to suffer the consequences for their wrongdoings, and they can't blame the parents for what the parents fail to do, and that's true. Every man must be accountable for his actions. As long as you've reached the age of accountability, you're responsible. You stand up and you suffer the consequences of your misdeeds. This is true. And for those of us who have failed to teach the right things, we need to review our steps, see where we went wrong, and we need to take corrective action. So that if we've been hating, let's stop hating and let's begin to love. If we've been stealing, let's stop stealing and live lives honestly. If you've been cheating and lying, stop it and begin to live lives grounded in integrity and honesty and goodwill. In other words, it doesn't matter if we've been going wrong. It comes a point where we need to right the ship and sail correctly in the right direction. There is a story, again, in the Old Testament, which I believe fits us so well here in the territory. And I want you guys to listen to me, those of you who are listening and viewing, I want you to hear me well. When you look at the story of Nineveh and the city of Joppa in the Bible, and you look at the prophet Jonah being sent to preach to those people, Jonah didn't want to go, you know. Jonah was prejudiced. Jonah was a Jew. And or Hebrew rather. I don't like using the term Jew too much, you know. He was a Hebrew. And he thought that the Hebrews were chosen people and better than others, especially the so-called Gentiles. And he didn't really want to mix with those people. Besides that, they had an attitude towards him, obviously. But they knew who he was. And so he didn't care to deal with them. And so he's given a message to go preach to those people in Nineveh. And he says to himself, no, I'm not going. He boards a ship to run away from the mission that he was charged with. And in running away, the story tells us how he gets thrown overboard because the storm comes up and he finds himself in the belly of a fish. Now, you know what's interesting? We read that story about Jonah in the belly of the fish. But what we're missing here is that when you really check out that story, those people in Nineveh, especially in the city of Joppa, they worshipped a god, but not the God, not the Elohim of the Hebrews. I think the god's name was Dagon or Dagon, a god that had a human body but a fish head. And there you got it. They're studying a fish. They're worshiping rather a fish head god and ignoring the real, true creator. And so they're living a life of sin, a life of moral decay, bacchanal, live it up, have a good time. We don't care. We just worship that fish head God and we go. That's how they were living. And there was much violence in the city. You had all kinds of crooks and thieves and robbers and corrupt individuals in the city living their lives. And clearly that was a life in opposition to the lifestyle of a prophet like Jonah. Jonah was sent to preach to them. And Jonah would not. First of all, he didn't like these people. He was prejudiced. I don't care to deal with them for, so I'm not going to go on the mission. But then he was placed in the belly of a fish and given us another commandment: you go do what he was sent to do. So he goes out. And we can only imagine what the scene was like when these people in Joppa seen Jonah walking through the streets and coming down with a simple message. Yet 40 days, and this city will be overthrown. Simple message. Yet 40 days, and this city will be overthrown. I can imagine if somebody walks the streets of certain cities today with such a message, then people might just grab that person and beat him up. What crap you come talking about? Yet 40 days and our city shall be overthrown. We'll put some blows on that individual. But anyway, Jonah delivered the message. And you know what was amazing, folks? And I'm saying, let's put the Virgin Islands, let's put St. Croix in a similar position like Nineveh, and somebody coming to tell us, still away, man. Stop the violence. Stop the domestic abuse. Stop stealing. Stop lying. Stop cheating. Put some decency in your lives. Apply some brakes, man. Let's have a little more control here. And think about this message and how we would react to such a messenger. But anyway, Jonah delivers his message, and the people listen, especially those at the top, the leaders, the king in particular, commanded everybody, dress up in sackcloth, humble yourselves, pray, and let us turn to the rightful God, because we know there is a rightful God. Forget about Dagon, and let's turn to the rightful God. And let's see if we can put some shame on this prophet coming there with a message. So you know what? They heeded the call of the prophet, and the destruction didn't come upon them. Everyone from the king down to the lowest caste member of the society repented of the crazy, crooked lifestyle they were living, humbled themselves, and turned to the true Creator in humility and accepted his commandments, and they were spared. I say that, folks, to tell us here on this island, when we just enter into New Year, and you hear of convictions of our people, and our people being sentenced to serve long prison terms. When you hear of 3 bodies being found at a dump site with gunshot wounds to the head. When you think of all of this coming on the heels of a year where we had over 30 homicides in the territory, some involving young people under the age of 25. On the heels of festivals we just had, I know some don't like to hear me speak about that, where we saw scenes that we did not particularly endorse, because you got to tell it like it is. You got to have the courage to tell it like it is. The fights we saw erupting in the festival village involving young people. The mode of dress, I find it hard to go there, but the way how some dress in public. The language, sentences and phrases laced with obscenities. People, you all think I'm stupid. Some of you must be saying that, man, Bapu taking on these things. Oh, what's it with Bapu? Bapu let the people live their life, man. You know, there is a saying in Creole, let Bab come awadu pidife, uze sao. In local parlance, I think they say if your friend's house, if your neighbor's house is on fire, you take water and throw on yours. So fire doesn't jump from your neighbor onto your house. I think that's how it is said in the local parlance here. But I'm saying to us, we are our brother's keeper, man. Whether you want to accept it or not, Bible says so. We are our brother's keeper. And so I'm saying to us, Virgin Islanders, I'm saying to us, the people of St. Croix, let's take a look at what is happening in this community here, in the territory of the Virgin Islands of the United States of America. Let's make a comparison in terms of what it was like in the past, as opposed to what it is like today. And let's be committed to make a change, to make a difference. The children look so beautiful when you see them in school, going to school and coming from school, you know. And yet we don't pause for a while to see where they are being neglected, not being given the necessary support and a sense of direction that's going to keep them from falling through the cracks. We need to sober up, get serious. And all of us who know better should do better and become architects of change. We have to take the approach of each one, teach one. That it takes the village to get the job done. It's all about teamwork. And don't be looking for accolades and all kinds of praise for what you're doing. Just do what you have to do, as long as it is for the good of the community. That's where we're at, friends. That's where we are at today. And I'm saying, man, doesn't look good. Now, I got a lot of things to talk about this morning, a lot of things I'm going to get into. Again, for those of you who may disagree with what I'm saying, who may even want to hate me for what I've shared this morning, I'm going to tell you something. Whatever hatred you have for me is small matters to the amount of love I have for you. I love you, no matter what, no matter how you feel about the message that I bring out this morning. We're all in this together. When the storm arises and is bearing down upon us, we all batten down. We're all concerned about what's happening to the other person in the house next door, in the town, a distance away from us. We're all concerned when the howling winds begin to wrap around our homes, when we hear the cracking of branches dropping, and the place is in darkness when the storms hit at night. We all sit in our homes or lie in our beds or cower under a table, especially if the galvanized begin to fly and the rafters breaking loose and flying away. We're all concerned. We're concerned about our individual safety as well as the safety of others around us. We've not had an earthquake. We don't want to have an earthquake. But if an earthquake strikes and devastation comes, we're hoping that we're all safe. We got to have that spirit of community. But it's one thing to have the spirit and to talk the talk. The next thing is to walk the walk. We got to come together. For those of you who want to comment on what I've said thus far, 773-0390 and 773-0490 are the numbers to call. If you want to call from outside the area code is 340. Now, having said much of what I've said this morning, I want to get into something else. I think, again, I might have mentioned that on the radio program on Friday night. I want to, again, say to you folks that we do have a program called Choices on Friday evenings on the same radio station. And of course, it streams on Facebook and I think one or two other platforms I'm not too sure of right now. But that program starts 7 o'clock on Friday night and goes till 8:30. We've got some young folk, manning the show with us. So I'm asking you guys to tune in. Tune in and share your views. Give us your take on the different things that we're discussing. And we're trying to put some structure in place to really bring the show to a level where we can really resonate in this community and impact lives in a meaningful way. So stay tuned for that. It is coming and it is going to happen. But on Friday of last week, I touched upon another thing which I want to again touch upon this morning. In this area, in these islands, majority of us are Africans, or at least African descendants. For those of you who don't want to say that you're African, we are African descendants, the majority of us. And it's about time we start, it's about time we stop allowing elements of divisiveness to come in between us. The only thing that truly separates us is the Caribbean Sea, the waters of the ocean, because we are indeed islands surrounded by water, individual islands, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic and Haiti, Bahamas, Bermuda, Antigua, St. Kitts, Nevis, Dominica, St. Lucia, Grenada, St. Vincent, Trinidad and Tobago, all islands separated by water. Don't let the waters that separate us infiltrate the mindset to the point where we willfully and in the absence of sound knowledge and doctrine begin to separate ourselves and feel that we're so much better than another and we want to have no dealings with the other. Let's stop it. And let's see where the threads that bind us together as one. Let's try and see how we can hold on to those threads and stick together as one. Powerful, united. There is strength in numbers. And so, recently, we heard that the United States of America, in particular, the Department of Homeland Security, Immigration, have now placed a pause in terms of migration from the islands to mainland America. It doesn't mean that people can get visitors visas, even in terms of getting a visitor's visa. In some instances, one has to put up a bond, $15,000 US, a bond you have to place in order to get a visa to visit friends and family in America. That's difficult. Think about it, folks. Those of us who take this for granted. Think about a person living in Antigua, living in Grenada, having to come up with $15,000 as a bond just to be able to visit friends and family on the mainland or here in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Tough. They've also placed bonds or stiff requirements for those who want to get a student visa to study on the mainland. Made it difficult for us. And on top of that, we've got a list of 75 nations where you have people residing in those jurisdictions who may be married to people who are US citizens or permanent residents in America. And now there is a pause. America has always prided itself as a nation that want to keep families together. But now we have a situation where there is a pause, which prevents families from being united, at least for the time being. We don't know how long the pause is going to last. Now, let me just say this to you guys. I think America is still the greatest nation on the earth. America is perhaps, and I would say America is the most powerful nation on the face of the earth. That would be by vote, that America is the most powerful nation. America is more powerful than China, more powerful than Russia, more powerful than North Korea. Taken individually, America, in my opinion, is the most powerful nation. And America has been, in my opinion, the greatest nation. Now, there might be some folks who may present some facts to me and show me where there may be some countries that perhaps have better social programs than America. If you present that and you convince me, of course I will acquiesce. But as far as I know, America is the best. That doesn't mean that America doesn't have its faults, its transgressions. That doesn't mean that America hasn't made some mistakes, some missteps. And America is operated under a constitution that gives respective powers to an executive branch, a legislative branch, and a judicial branch. They all have their roles to play. And sometimes, of course, you'll have persons making some decisions that's not in conformity with the wishes or the will of people, whether it's a majority or minority. But I think there are some checks and balances that, if properly followed, can take care of those circumstances or situations that may arise. But here is a situation where there is a pause, a rule has been implemented, if I may, to put a pause on migration from those countries to America. And here is my take on that. It's not just the pause per se, you know, people. Stop being blind. Stop being naive. When you look at the Caribbean area, the Caribbean islands in particular, I want us to look at this closely. Let's start off with islands not included. The French islands of Martinique, Guadeloupe, not included in the pause. Well, those islands actually, they're protectorates, if I may use that expression, of the French. And look at geopolitics and the leaders on the scene right now and see what's happening. They're exempt. Martinique, Guadeloupe. You look at the English-speaking Caribbean islands. Who's exempt? Bermuda. Bermuda is similar to Martinique and Guadeloupe in terms of Bermuda's relationship with the British, Great Britain, England. They're exempt. So you decide for yourself what elements beyond what I have intimated here might have led to their exemption. You do that yourself. Use upstairs and figure it out for yourself. Then let's look at another one exempted, or at least two. One is an island, one is part of the South American chain. Guyana, exempted. Trinidad and Tobago, exempted. What's it about them? What's it about Trinidad and Tobago that they get an exemption that the other islands do not get? Antigua doesn't get it, St. Lucia doesn't get it, Grenada doesn't get it, you know. What's it about Trinidad and Tobago that that is given to them? And Guyana, what's it about Guyana? Is it because Guyana is not an island, but a part of the South American chain? I mean, landmass? What's it? Well, folks, if I can bust a bubble or two, both of these countries have oil. Matter of fact, I don't know of any Caribbean island besides Trinidad and Tobago which has oil. And of course, Guyana, recent discoveries have indicated that there are massive deposits of oil in Guyana. You take that information, if you're serious, look at that information and stop being wimpy. Stop being a wimp. Take that information and you decide for yourself how that information plays a role. I've come to a point where I respect all people. I respect little children. I respect grown adults. As long as respect is on a mutual basis. You respect me, I respect you. I don't try to just bring offense just willy-nilly. But I try to make use of upstairs as best as I can. And I try to tell it like it is. Matter of fact, I've come to a point where I'm really unafraid, and even as I say that to you, I'm a little taken aback because I just told my wife about a dream I had. And I didn't tell her all of what I experienced in the dream. But when I think about it, it's almost as though there is something I don't feel too good about. But it is what it is. I'm in the matrix. And I'll deal with elements in the matrix until, for whatever reasons, I'm out of the matrix. Called home, taken out, whatever it is. But whilst I'm here, I'll share knowledge and information I've acquired with those who are willing to listen. And so I'm saying to you guys, whilst we're very divisive, and that division or divisiveness rather goes back a long way. When I grew up as a child in this area, I recall when you had the Black Power movement, there were some elders who, they were so conservative in their thinking. They would tell us that, this whole Black Power movement is bad. And there is so much violence connected to the Black Power movement. And that we shouldn't be a part of the Black Power movement. They try to tell us that it wasn't good for us, and yet you had other elders who told us that it was good to recognize Black Power. And so some of us got into the movement of Black Power. It was good. We felt good to raise our fist in the air and shout Black Power. And like I said, there were elders who frowned upon it. Things were happening. I'm talking about, I grew up in the 60s, 70s, and, lots of things were happening around us, and we got swept by the waves sometimes, and sometimes we didn't get swept up with the ongoing wave. And when I attended college, there was a course being offered in African civilization. And because of what some elders shared with me about African civilization, these elders didn't see anything good about Africa. And they thought that it was a waste of time to take a course in African civilization. And I regret the fact that I didn't enroll in a course in African civilization. I think it would have done me much good at that time. But it is what it is. Thank God, with the internet and other sources, I've been able to learn a lot about Africa and Africa's contribution to humanity. So I'm here today, proud in the fact that I am an African descendant. And those of us who grew up at the time I'm referring to, who heard people talking about small nation mentality, So that if you came from an island which was pretty much a fleck of dust in the Caribbean Ocean, and the bigger islands thought they were better than us because we were small island people, small-minded people, and they were better. And maybe that's what led to the demise of the British Federation. That, well, was it the Federation of Caribbean Islands that came out of the waning years of colonialism? Maybe it's because some felt bigger and better than others why the Federation collapsed. I don't know. Somebody might know better. Somebody might have a better view, a better understanding of the history, can call in and share with us why the Federation collapsed. But my recollection is that the bigger islands pulled out one by one until the whole thing collapsed. And we've tried to see, I say we, leaders in the Caribbean have tried to reignite the spirit of Caribbean integration. Some progress has been made, but perhaps there is a lot more to be desired. But that's in a nutshell some of what we've experienced. It was a time, I'm going to segue into something here. It was a time when the Rastafarian teachings, lifestyle was spreading through the Caribbean area. And again, there were many elders who had displeasure at Rastafarianism coming into some of the islands, especially the smaller islands. And they resisted that. Even folks in government decried Rasta. And there were all kinds of things being said about it. Those of you who grew up in those days, you'll recall some of the expressions we had in terms of who was Rakan and not a Rasta, and all kinds of terminologies that crept into the local vocabulary relative to people who embraced the change at the time. And it was a time, along with Black Power, and the coming of the Rastafarian lifestyle, where people began to smoke a lot of marijuana in the islands. People began smoking a lot of marijuana. And perhaps there are different strains of marijuana. Maybe some strains of marijuana are genetically modified strains. But people got into smoking marijuana, became a big thing. A lot of people went to jail for growing marijuana, for selling marijuana. In the midst of all that, I had very little use of marijuana. I think I might have smoked marijuana either once or twice whilst I was in college. I might have smoked marijuana, I'm trying to recall, maybe once whilst I was on campus. And then I think right here on the island of St. Croix, I might have smoked marijuana on about 3 occasions. I wasn't given to it, but a lot of my friends were into it, smoking marijuana. I wasn't given to it, and so I was never turned on to it. On the island of St. Lucia, where I was born, I don't recall ever smoking marijuana when I was on the island of St. Lucia. Marijuana was there. And especially guys who had been to university, who came back, who were, having conversations with those of us who attended secondary schools. Some of them smoked marijuana. And some of my friends got into smoking marijuana with them. I stayed away. Maybe it's because of the father I had. He was very conservative, quite a disciplinarian. And so I didn't indulge in the smoking of marijuana out there, but I had about three occasions where I smoked marijuana on this island here. And I think when I was in college over in St. Thomas, I think on one occasion, I smoked some marijuana. And so, folks, we've come to a point today where we don't have the view of marijuana that we had in the days of these elders that I have referred to. But we're taking a more lenient stance towards marijuana, so much so that marijuana, which was viewed in a very negative light by governments, is now receiving the blessings of governments across the spectrum, all around the Caribbean islands. Governments are now relaxing the approach towards marijuana. And so here in the Virgin Islands, we have legalized the medicinal use of cannabis. And I understand that the rules are being developed or have been developed. Some producers have been vetted, and some have been accepted to produce and to get involved in the industry, the cannabis industry here in the Virgin Islands for medicinal purposes. I don't have a problem with that. I do not have a problem with that. I think the medicinal uses of marijuana have been researched and well documented. And I've mentioned on this program before that I have drunk marijuana tea, and I thought I saw some benefits, health-wise, coming from drinking marijuana tea. So I don't have a problem with that. And I know that, folks know how to extract different things and to blend, and so you have medicinal formulas used, or rather that makes use of cannabis, and it's very helpful to certain people. So I don't have a problem with that. But folks, we are now getting ready to implement the standards, the guidelines for the recreational use of marijuana here in the territory of the United States Virgin Islands. Do I have a problem with that? I have some concerns. And I hope that those who are in charge will put in place the proper regulations to protect young people in particular, those who are under the age of 25. I want to repeat that. I would hope that the regulators would do the necessary research and put in place the requisite measures to protect young people, especially those under the age of 25, when it comes to the recreational use of marijuana. And I'll give you some of the reasons why I have arrived at such a determination, but let me hear what the scholar has to say first. Hello, caller. Good morning and welcome.
Hey, how you doing today, Senator Baptiste?
I'm doing fine, thanks. How about you?
I can't complain. Still alive and just, hanging in there.
Well, hey, just stay strong and keep the faith.
Yeah, what's the topic today?
Well, I've touched upon so many things. I touched upon the pause imposed by the Department of Justice, specifically Homeland Security or Immigration, on 75 countries in the world where they've paused the issuance of immigrant visas on a permanent basis to individuals who would like to migrate from those countries to join their spouses or family on the mainland and also here in the territory. I spoke about that. I spoke about the composition.
Oh, so then, Baptiste, can I just make a quick comment on that?
Go ahead.
I want to thank my president-elect, the greatest president of all time, Donald Trump, because that is exactly what we voted for. We have a huge problem with illegal immigrants coming into this country, with human trafficking into this country, and children that have been gone missing at the border during President Biden's term. Over 500,000 children have still gone missing just in thin air. So I want to thank President Trump for tightening up the belt with the border and with all the illegals coming in, take up all the resources, because, you know, they put the illegals ahead of us, American citizens, especially the Black American citizens that's been enslaved in this country and fought against our will and built this country and has been denied for so many hundreds of years. And then you got your own Black people out there protesting about ICE and for illegal immigrants when them and their mothers and ancestors have not gained any type of justice, restitution, or reparations in this country as of this date. So again, I want to thank President Trump because we have zero illegal aliens and immigrants coming across the border. The border is secure. That's what we voted for. We are winners. So go ahead, continue.
All right, can I ask you to, let's pause for a while. Let me ask you, let's take a look at the Caribbean area, specifically the island chain from the Bahamas all the way down to Trinidad. And of all those islands in the Caribbean area, you have Trinidad and Tobago, exempt. You have Guyana, which was formerly British Guyana, exempt. And I want you to note about Guyana and Trinidad and Tobago that they both have oil. Then you come along, you go to Martinique and Guadeloupe, exempt. They are French protectorates. You go over to Bermuda, exempt, a British protectorate. What is it, besides what I have pointed out to you, what is it that sets them apart from, say, Jamaica, say, St. Lucia, Dominica, Grenada, Barbados, St. Vincent, and the rest of them? What is it that makes them so much better that they're exempt, but the other islands I mentioned, they are experiencing the pause? Share that with us, if you may.
All right. What makes them exempt is, for one, we got the largest oil refinery in the Western Hemisphere is right there in the United States Virgin Islands. Trinidad covers some of that also with the oil. And we have a relationship with Trinidad, and this is a matter of national security. And to make America great again, we have to secure our resources and the oil, and to protect and to build our golden dome. And again, human trafficking, you know, cocaine, illegal guns coming into our country, you know, so we have to tighten up our belt. And a lot of these countries, you know, they partner up with these terrorist organizations, and it's been proven that some of the people within America and within our what's going on in Minnesota, how they are able to funnel billions and billions of dollars through these organizations. So, you know, we have to kind of tighten up our belt a little bit again, because it's a matter of national security. And we have an oil refinery, the largest oil refinery in the Western Hemisphere is right there in St. Croix. Is that correct?
You're correct about that.
Yeah.
Although it's not,
so
although it is currently not refining, but go ahead.
Yeah, so again, at the bottom line, it's a matter of national security. We had a huge breach around the world with the human trafficking and all that Epstein is involved. You know, this stuff is still coming out. It's one of the most high-end human trafficking and, you know, that operation in the world. So we have to go about this the right way. They've been trying to set Donald Trump up for many years. They tried to set him up with Stormy Daniels in his first campaign when he ran. They took him to court, and all it was he paid Stormy Daniels a little hush money, you know. So if they had anything on him with Epstein, I think that they would have used it during that election. I think when Joe Biden was in office, they would have used it on Donald Trump. They have been trying to go after Donald Trump for many, many years since he has left the Democratic Party because he was a lifelong Democrat Party member, and he left the Democratic Party. He said he wants to get back to God. Our country needs to get back to God. The children need to know about God and get them back to God, and to cut out this foolishness with confusing kids and parents. And, you know, as the Chief Supreme Court Justice, the black woman said, she don't even know the difference between a boy and a girl, or what makes up a female, a woman. Can a woman get pregnant? She said, I got to go consult a biologist. I'm not a biologist. I mean, what a disgrace that a black woman who is the head of our household, the backbone of our family and Holy Trinity with father, mother, and children, to be that backbone, to even come and do our ancestors like that. I mean, just what a disgrace that we have someone like that that's supposed to be a mother and a black woman at that, to, you know, and that's what these people have been doing to us, watering down our struggles and trying to make it seem as if these Jeffrey Epstein people meant us some good, when they was the same ones that owned the slave ships and made all of their wealth off of insurance and during slavery. And it was mind-blowing that during the 1950s and 60s, during Martin Luther King, and Martin Luther King realized that, as what he said to Harry Belafonte, I just led my people into a burning house. We don't need social integration. It was never about drinking from the same water fountain. It was never about eating at the same restaurant. It was more about what the black slave built when he cleared that swampland and he built his own black city like Haiti, Haiti district up there in North Carolina, that was built by the black slave that finally got his freedom. He didn't go to college or Harvard or, you know, all this stuff that W.E. Du Bois, because you made mention on that, on what's wrong with our people, why they in a certain mind frame. Well, you had W.E. Du Bois who came up with a whole new way of thinking, a whole new mind frame, because W.E. Du Bois said he ain't no slave, and I ain't never been in no slavery. I went to Harvard, and I studied, and I high class. T. Washington, George Washington Carver talking about they want 40 acres in the view, and they could go build their own black town and their own nations and their own cities. That's what we had did, Senator Baptiste, because when the 13th Amendment was written by the man with the wooden foot, the abolitionary white man, because he was treated wrongly all his life, so he had empathy towards the slave because he was, you know, born with a disability. And he wrote the 13th Amendment. And after they wrote the 13th Amendment, it showed that, yeah, we freed them and we gave them rights to vote. But they got to go back on the plantation to work as sharecroppers. So the first civil rights act in 1867 or 1865, it's around about that time. You know, I don't want to tell lies on the radio, but it's around about that. I'll say on around about that time. But the first Civil Rights Act was the Freedmen's Act, and that came from General Sherman's order, where they took hundreds of thousands of oceanfront farmland and they gave it to the black enslaved people as a form of reparations. And that's how they came up with the whole concept of 40 acres and a mule. In order to give the black people their freedom, they got to have some type of land and some type of money or some type of resource so that they could feed themselves. But they tricked us. They tricked us again, and they used the W.E. Du Bois and the A. Philip Randolph, because every time they discovered and came to visit places like Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Haiti district, every major city in Florida was built by blacks. Jacksonville, Florida, Tallahassee, Apopka, the Apopka, Apopka Lake. There's a whole black town with graveyards and cemeteries and courthouses up under the lake, just as in Atlanta. So, you know, we're dealing with John Rockefeller and the Epstein bankers and these people who have been in power to play their games, because after they freed the slaves, they came up with the slave code so that they could now arrest you just for basically walking down the street. And John Rockefeller championed that and made billions and billions of dollars off of free labor, and he got free land from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast. They gave them free land to build the railroad system. And not only did they give them the free land 6 miles north and 6 miles south, they got all the land in between for free. And then they got free labor off of the blacks' prison that was coming to go work for free.
So,
and this is the same man that's down in the Virgin Islands that's controlling the Rockefeller and Chase Bank and Bank of America and Wells Fargo. All of those banking institutes was created and benefited, and even to this very day.
So
from what our answers get.
So let me say something to you. And before I say well, first of all, I agree with a lot of what you've said. I agree with a lot of what you've said. But let me also say to you, my friend, if you take a black pig and you dress it up in a khaki pants, and you take a white pig and you dress it up in a khaki pants, you still have a pig in a khaki pants. Now, hello?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, now hear me out. When you speak about Epstein, the Epstein scandal, and sex trafficking and all of that, and you speak about the need to protect or secure borders and to prevent this kind of activity, whilst I am in agreement with you, I want to ask you something. Has there any evidence been presented to us where you take islands such as St. Lucia, Grenada, Dominica, St. Vincent, and Barbados, and to show us where those islands have been complicit, have been involved in sex trafficking or any of the activities of Epstein, so as to justify them being placed on a list of 75 nations where immigration or migration rather to the United States has been placed on a pause. Are you with me?
Yeah, I'm with you. You said, so basically you want to know that these nations and countries and islands that you just named, that they don't have any connection or any dealings with the whole Epstein thing? Is that?
I am asking you whether we have been presented with any evidence that these islands that I mentioned have been involved with the Epstein-related activities and scandals, or that they have been involved or been complicit in sex trafficking or any kind of activity that threatens the security, the national security of the United States of America.
Yeah, the Epstein scandal has been going on since our sugar days. That's what the whole sugar industry and slavery was about, human trafficking. And we could go all the way back through into that. And the Epstein deal was worldwide. You got Prince Andrew and all the elites around the world who control the world.
So then by that token, hold on, because you mentioned Prince Andrew. So by that token, England should be on the list.
Yeah, England. Well, you know, the white boys ain't gonna go against white boys.
Oh, okay.
I mean, come on.
Okay. I just want us to face the truth, you know.
You know how it is, Senator Baptiste.
I know.
At the end of the day, it's called racism.
Right.
You covered that, and we spoke about how the white folks, they don't get along, and they really was killing each other.
That's why.
But when they started up slavery and racism, that's when they all came together to come to America and to form capitalism.
Okay, that's why. Yeah. That's why I prefaced my question by telling you that if you take a black pig and you put it in a khaki pants, and you take a white pig and you put it in a khaki pants, you still have a pig in a khaki pants.
Absolutely.
All right.
Well, when was this? The early 1600s, up in Maryland County, they wrote some of the first edicts and laws for blacks and whites because we all had came here and was working together and they didn't know anything. You know, the slave thing was a whole new thing that the white man was just learning about. And as he went along, he makes adjustment. That's why it's called practicing law. And I want to talk to you about this person because I know Shelley Moorhead is saying that Denmark needs to apologize for slavery.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that the people know about Anthony Johnson, who was Antonio during the time that he came over on the Portuguese ship. And after he did his indentured service time, he became Anthony Johnson. And he was a black man from Angola that came over on the slave ship. And at this time, after you worked your 5-7 years of indentured service, you could now go, and the law was you could go get some land. And if you get this land and you go get some slaves and put some black slaves, we'll give you, you know, more land and support, and you could get the resources to build your farm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Anthony Johnson actually did that. And he became one of the richest and wealthiest man and slave owners in America, in Virginia. Because, you know, people like to call it, say, I tell stories a lot. This is on court documents, on the records. You can look it up.
Mm-hmm.
So Anthony Johnson came from Angola, got his indigenous service, and became one of the richest slave owners during the colonial time. No, this is before America, because this was before they did the whole 1776. This is 1600.
Mm-hmm.
And he became one of the richest ones. So one of his slaves was talking to another slave owner, a white man, and he was telling the white man that he'd been working for this black man who's a slave owner, Anthony Johnson, for 20 years. Mm-hmm. And the white man said, there's no way. You supposed to be got your freedom. You only supposed to work 5 or 7 years. So the white man told the black slave, you should run away for your freedom. And the slave did that. The black man, Anthony Johnson, found out that the white man told his black slave to run, and he took the white man to court, to the Supreme Court. And when he took him to court, his argument is that his slaves on his kind of land, they are born into slavery and they're going to die into slavery. This is how the white man learned and got the concept and wrote the law, was based upon what Anthony Johnson did, taking this, and he won. It's on the record. He won that. The white man ain't know nothing about putting the black women and lifelong slaves. They got that from Anthony Johnson. You could look that up. And then you had another black slave owner, because a lot of people don't like to tell these things. Down there in South Carolina, he invented the cotton gin. And when he invented the cotton gin, he got his freedom. And when he got his freedom, he went and got him some land and got him slaves and owned slaves also. So, you know, when people try to tell half stories and they don't even try to, you know, really get the facts, because again, Pope Innocent wrote the edict in the late 1480 about going to go get the slaves down there in Africa. That was from Pope Innocent. Well, Henry the Navigator in the early 1400s took the 15 blacks that the African king gave to him because he wanted to show the white man how much power he got. So they was just coming down to Africa to get, you know, resources, salt, pepper, spices, gold, and, you know, all this stuff that we had, natural resources. The white man ain't know nothing about no slavery or anything. So Henry the Navigator took those 15 blacks back to the Catholic Church and gave them to the Catholic Church. And they had those black people just doing little minor stuff around the Catholic Church, sweeping and, you know, cooking and doing stuff. And that's where the whole concept and the idea came from Pope Innocent in the late 1400s. So I don't know the brother Shelley Moorhead. I don't know who or where he got his platform or what he said that the white man in Denmark owe apologies or anything. But if there's anybody that's owed or due or apology, it's Derek. And what me and my family have gone through, and we are owed the apologies. We are owed the restitution. We are owed the reparations. There's legislation being written in certain districts across America, and I said this to Eugene Farrell, and when I bring this topic up, I don't know why black folks, every time you bring up about reparations and restitution, they always laugh at you. It's like you're speaking a third language or something. Do you know why, as you as a former legislator, and you hear someone speaking as it pertains to our ancestors and all that they have been through and never getting paid, never getting reparated, never getting any single thing from the Revolutionary War we was lied to, the Civil War we was lied to, World War I we was lied to and came back and got lynched from trees because W.E. Du Bois, they used him again. I'm going to wrap up. I just want you to know this part. W.E. Du Bois, they used him again to rally all the blacks to go into World War I because remember, the black man never got anything from the first two wars. So we was done with trying to go fight the war, but they brought W.E. Du Bois and he got them to go into World War. And when W.E. Du Bois went over and toured the sites of the war, and they saw the Red Cross wasn't helping the black folks, and W.E. Du Bois felt guilty, and he felt ashamed and bad that these people were being done like that, and the army and military tricked him to speak up for him and to do him like that. And in closing, I want you to know this, Senator Baptiste, and this is for a lot of our people. We don't have any clue, but it was the police during Jim Crow that helped lynch us, and that was part of the KK. And it was the National Guard, the American National Guard and military who helped burn down Tulsa, Oklahoma within 24 hours, the Haitian district up there in North Carolina. So, you know, we got to understand what we up against. And they've made me understand how Love James Sr. was the first National Guard guy. And there you go, the National Guard coming and go steal money from me and my family members. And there you go, the National Guard. And that's proven because my family got a lawsuit against Love James for what he did, but I don't got no bad blood to him because he paid back the money. But it was a bigger operation going on called Government COINTELPRO that affect me. And John F. Kennedy came down there and he was friends with my family and went to my church. So Operation Mockingbird affects me, and that took place down in St. Croix. And then we also had Operation Ghetto Informant, where they're going to use your own friend, your own homeboy. You could look this up, Operation Ghetto Informant, where they were just pulling people over for a simple ticket. And for a simple ticket, they will use one of your own buddies to infiltrate you and set you up for the kill or to go in prison. And they don't even have to have something on you. They will just make up stuff. And then the next part that took us down, Senator Baptiste, was a white woman. The white woman that will call rape, or the white woman that would tell a lie on the black man. And then the next thing you know, they're going to burn the whole town down. And even if the black man is in jail, they're going to come break him out of jail, and they're going to hang him from a tree right in front of the jail. And no one will get prosecuted. So,
well said. And I'm going to tell you what, Mark Derrick, I'm going to just give a brief summary after you've left. Just listen, you'll hear what I have to say in terms of what you have said and what I said earlier on before you called into the show.
Okay, thank you so much, Senator Baptiste. I'm driving, so you know sometimes you in and out of what, but I think we made the best that what we could do, and I know that our ancestors is proud of us because this is the only thing that we got was our voice.
All right.
They stole and they take everything else and they control everything. The only thing we got is our freedom of speech and our freedom of expression. So I thank you and honor you and the late great Mr. Michael Springer for always honoring me and my voice, and the ancestors are even more proud of you, Senator Baptiste, for being a man of God and a man of honor. Thank you so much.
Thanks for calling and sharing. Stay strong. Keep the faith. Bye. All right, folks. I just want to say it, and I hope the brother is still listening. I spoke extensively when I began the program about the need for us to have love for one another. The need for us to recognize that we are all Africans in the diaspora. Whether you live in the Caribbean chain, in South America, Central America, as long as your ancestry goes back to Africa, you are, or you may consider yourself either African or African descendant living in the diaspora, which means that you're outside of Africa. and the need for us to understand that as Africans, we need to come together to understand the past, what we've been through, how we have been similarly situated in certain circumstances, and how we need to come together as one to remove from the midst of us, from the mindset, the elements of moral degeneracy, so that we can become an upright people, an outstanding people, a people of light, if I may, true children of the Creator Most High. That is what I tried to emphasize this morning when I spoke about our experiences out here in the so-called New World, the Caribbean area, and that includes the African Americans as well, those African descendants who live on mainland America. And I try to point out that, we have been divided by forces external to us, if I may use that expression. People who don't want to see us come together. They set us apart. I spoke about how some of us from certain islands thought that we were big island people and we were superior to the small island guys. That was a mindset that we had, pervading the Caribbean area, the Caribbean islands at one point in time. And we need to stop it. I highlighted the life and mission of Yeshua the Messiah. I spoke about how the island of St. Croix is the only island I know which has the name of a cross, St. Croix, St. Cross. And what the cross means in terms of the life, the mission of Yeshua the Messiah. And the need for us to not allow ourselves to be separated, divided, as our islands have been separated and divided by the waters of the Caribbean Sea, the oceans. But we need to rise above that and come together as one, to understand that whether you come from Trinidad, Jamaica, St. Lucia, Antigua, St. Kitts, Nevis, Dominica, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Cuba, they're all Africans in the diaspora. And we need to focus on what binds us together as opposed to what separates us. Hello, caller. Good day and welcome.
Oh, pleasant. Good morning.
Good morning to you and welcome to the program.
Thank you. I haven't listened to you because I just arrived on St. Thomas.
So you've been traveling?
Yeah. So I wasn't listening to your show.
All right.
I don't know what
well, I guess you missed a whole lot, but that's okay. Maybe some other time we can get into it all.
Okay. Well, it's a historic day today. The
It is?
19th elected governor of the U.S. Virgin Island is saying his final
okay.
state of the territory address. So I'm here to immerse myself in this historic moment.
Are you gonna be seated among all the invited folk, or you'll be standing outside and watching on a television monitor?
Yes, I'm watching a television monitor.
Okay. I thought you were one of those special invites.
I got a special invite to the reception.
Oh wow. You're going places, you're rubbing shoulders. That's good. Congratulations to you.
Well, and it's an honor and a pleasure.
You must share with me the art of getting to go places with people who are in high places and to rub shoulders with them. I don't know how to do that.
You are a senator. Once a senator, always a senator.
Well, I was a senator because the masses thought at the time that I was worthy of being a senator. So I thank the masses for that, not the people in high places.
Mm-hmm. Well, you have another chance. This is going to, in my prediction, this is going to be the biggest.
The biggest election. What? Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I predict over 10 gubernatorial teams, about half of them Democrats. I predict a Democrat governor is going to win. despite all this backlash the Democratic Party is getting, you can't deny the fact. Most of the Democrats have been, most of the governors elected so far have been Democrats. All of them elected so far got second term, so something good must be happening.
But I'm also hearing that when you look at you compare the number of registered Democrats to no party, voters, the gap has been narrowed significantly recently.
And you heard the statistics that was given during last week, Friday's hearing in the legislature.
No, I didn't follow. What share that with me.
Out of all the registered Democrats in the territory, only about 100 are due paying card members of the Democratic Party. And it doesn't seem like none of the incumbent Democrats wish to strengthen the party, in my opinion. They talk about the fee and there's resistance to standardizing the organization. So I don't know where that's going. But in my opinion, I think that this time any kind of election reform should be put on hold because you're dealing with a major election. Several races, including the gubernatorial race. And I believe we're going to have a record-breaking number of names on the ballot. Now imagine some people don't want to put their paper ballots in the tabulator because according to what I'm hearing, machines can be rigged, which we all know. That's a given. That's the obvious, yes. Anything man invented can be rigged, right? Laws can be changed. However, if you have a system that's already established and you have statistics to show that since the inception of tabulators, elections have been faster, more effective in counting the ballots. So why would you want to do an overhaul and so-called give people a choice? I think that's insanity. And for the senators to really be thinking about doing that in the midst of an election cycle, that's
let me just share with you and those who are listening and viewing that there is a law which currently prohibits the amending or introduction of new laws within 6 months of an election, a general election.
Right. So, April 12th is the deadline.
Okay.
But what I'm saying though is, even if you try to address the issue within that deadline, that is something that really needs some careful reconsideration because it's not a simple matter of choice. You have to overhaul the system, and there's no place that a dual method of counting ballots. It's either you go in and it's exclusively electronic counting, or exclusively or primarily manual counting. There's no dual voting system operating within the same election cycle. No place else, and anybody could.
Well, let me just say that in a sense, I am sympathetic towards those who want to use paper ballots and to have those paper ballots accounted manually, because of course across the nation, the electronic system, voting system, has come under indictment from people who just feel that it's all being rigged. So I can sympathize with those persons here in the territory who want to take a different approach. But let me also say that we have had situations where if those boxes aren't kept under a tight chain of custody, you can still have rigging taking place with them. In other words, you got to make sure that you have the right set of people in charge of those boxes at all times. And I understand, based on the presentation made by Miss Peggy Moorhead here on my program, that those votes would be counted manually in the same area, in the same voting, how you call it, the same voting station where they've been cast. So there would be no opportunity to have a transfer from one point to the next where they may lose the chain of custody and something new entered into the process. So that's my understanding. It's all based on the fact that folks have come to a point where they just don't trust the electronic system of voting, and they're asking for something that can be more trustworthy and perhaps observed more readily and easily.
I understand your point, and I am saying there has been no proof of election fraud, and furthermore, all the studies show electronic counting of ballots is far more effective, accurate, faster, smoother than counting ballots manually. And this is not verified. And secondly, you said the key word, feeling. When you go to court, the judge doesn't want to hear about your feelings. Like Judge Alfonso and Juicy wants evidence. Feelings, suspicions, hearsay, those things are not evidence. You have to provide evidence. So there's no rational basis to regress to what we had in the past. None. Absolutely none. Because you feel the machine is rigged. No. That's not good enough. And I have the statement made by the supervisor of elections. She gave us her presentation. She came with statistics, facts, not no feelings, not no suspicion. Facts that can be verified. And all that thing about trust and security and all of that. So as the supervisor election members, it's not just a matter of changing one part of the law, it's a whole slew of amendments you will have to do. So I look at it as a complete overhaul. And that's in my opinion, that's madness. That doesn't happen in a place else. We already have a hybrid system where you have a choice. You say you didn't mark on your ballot, right? You use the touch screen machine, correct? I use both methods. So you do have a choice. If you want to physically have the ballot, the paper ballot in your hand and mark on the ballot, you have that choice. But whether you use the top, the paper ballot to mark your vote directly, or the touch screen machine, the express voting machine, all my understanding. So I don't know everything. So if I say anything that's incorrect, you could please correct me. My understanding is all the ballots are counted electronically.
Let me just say this here. I agree with you to some extent in that, the actions we take, the conclusions we draw should be evidence-based. But by the same token, we cannot completely remove feelings and emotions from the mix. In all areas of life, as we process things, whether it is in court, whether it is in a court of law where evidence is being presented, the feelings, the emotions of the victims in a sexual assault case has to be taken into consideration. That's why sometimes judges even call for an adjournment and hands over a tissue to a crime
and
victim.
Statute of limitation, right? Is there a statute of limitation for rape?
In some places, not across the board, because that's why they were able to come back and charge certain places in New York and other places because they removed the statute of limitations. So some places still have statute of limitations when it comes to sexual assault, but some places have removed it.
Okay, well, I am saying the feelings, yes, I agree, should be taken into consideration, but we have to help those people with those irrational thoughts. You may feel that way, and everybody's entitled to a feeling or emotion, but you're not entitled to your own fact. And I am saying, if your only reason for feeling, your only resistance to putting your paper ballot into a tabulator is you're afraid you're not going to get an accurate count, you have to look objectively at the information because you can't just internalize. It's not about how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
You got to listen to every side. Mm-hmm. And the board of elections,
mm-hmm.
a motion is flown by an attorney, a brilliant mind, a seasoned attorney.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Michael Joseph.
Yeah.
It passed. Majority voted to oppose that measure by Frankie Johnson. And not only that, the supervisor of elections testified.
Mm-hmm.
And what will occur, this could take place. And that's why I said, don't disregard how people feel. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
But people have to understand your personal feelings don't change the facts. And you
but hold on. I have some personal feelings about the system, about the process, and based on my feelings, I want to take some action to change that. For example, I'm going to tell you straight up, our people are just too apathetic, and so we need to see some action to get our people out of apathy. Our people are just too uninformed or misinformed, and I want to see action whereby we can bring about accurate information to our people so they can be well armed to deal with the failures in the system.
Well, that's why I love the things that Michael Springer used to say, and the one that always sticks in my mind is small minds talk about people, medium minds talk about events, great minds talk about ideas. This is what I'm saying. Instead of talking about how you feel, tell me, you have any ideas how to improve the system? Because regression ain't improvement. It's not progression. Going back to where something in the past failed, but you want to go back. Mm-hmm. That's your feeling.
Mm-hmm. No, that's not. No. That is not the person's feelings. The person's feelings I'm saying people's feelings and emotions drive them to take action, and so the action being taken may not be acceptable to you, but the action being taken is that they, based upon their feelings, they want to have paper ballots being used and counted.
Their action, so their right. They have a right to redress the government, the paying taxes, the legislature. I am not saying that should not occur, but I am saying we need to listen to evidence.
All right.
Besides feelings, we all have feelings. I'm a human being. I have feelings too. But at the same time, we have to understand the right to vote is also a prerogative, a choice. Nobody put a gun to your head and say you must vote. If you feel your vote isn't going to come, you have an action. Then don't put it in a tabulator, but should you go there and make a scene? Should you have a meltdown? Should you throw a temper tantrum? I wasn't back to put my... No.
Has anybody done that?
Yeah.
And I don't
totally misbehave and you want to send message when you don't get it your way. You're going to throw a fit and disturb the peace. You think that's right? That's not right to me.
All right. Well, I got got 10 minutes left.
Okay, well, with the 10 minutes, I will wrap up and say I will give you all and our report and what's happened in the capital. And I want you to know you are one of the most respected senators, and we have to work together to get the young people out. Let's have that mission, that journey together. Get the young people out to vote. Every 18-year-old, or those who could be making 80 by the time the election comes around, we should try to get them. So I think we should work on that, right?
Definitely, and that's why I have the program choices, and I want you to join me as we try to build up on the program choices, which is aired every Friday evening. We want to bring the young people in to begin to speak their truth on choices. Right. So when you get back, we're gonna get together.
Okay, then. People,
all right.
You.
Take care. Bye. Mm-hmm. What's this here now? Hello, caller. Good morning and welcome.
Yes. Good morning, Mr. John Baptiste.
Good morning.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, thanks. How about you?
Good. 1 second. I had in my headphones. I just wanted to take it out so it wouldn't be echoing. It was wind. So yeah, I'm okay. Besides the fact that we had that polar vortex that came through yesterday.
Right.
As a result, we have maybe about 5-6 inches of snow on the ground outside, and we expected some more later today.
But you're not without power, are you? Hello? Are you without power?
No.
Oh, okay, okay, all right.
No, I'm in New York City now. We ain't gonna go without power.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, all our lines are buried, unlike maybe upstate, maybe some the southern regions that have their transmission lines above ground where they had freeze warnings, tree branches breaking off and causing power service interruption. But what I called today about was, I don't know, with all the stuff that's going on, I don't know if people realize that 2 days ago on Saturday, the Japanese bond market crashed, which is the third largest bond market on the planet. Where I think I read this is some around the first day was like $41 billion, and it could be looking like $7 trillion, which triggered a lot of margin calls here in America, especially with 30-year Treasury bonds. So I just said, let me Google to see what effect it would have on a special purpose, special unit purpose bond. What was that called? Special purpose bond that they floated for
the GRS.
To keep the GRS from insolvency. Well, it was a 30-year bond, and I think that's what it was, especially those that have not a high yield, but speculative because of their fiscal history. And, so it's not looking good overall. So,
well, okay, now hold on. You say it's not looking good overall, but specifically as relates to our government employees retirement system and their portfolios, how does it look?
Yeah, well, they didn't have an update on that as yet. Okay. They just said on-site ID could be what was the word they used? I forgot the terminology they used, but I'm still looking out to see if they have some sort of release on that specific bond with but I know they were saying that the pension systems were going to be taking a big hit, and it's just something to look out for. And knowing that we have the state of the territory pending this evening,
More than likely, the governor is not gonna, more than likely the governor is not going to touch upon that. But we do have.
This just happened Saturday.
Yeah.
It was 2 days ago, so he probably doesn't have his speech set and everything else.
Right.
Um,
But trust me, we have some folk, at the GRS, they've got their caps on, Mr. Dawson, and I'm certain that they're looking into that and they will give us an update in short order.
Well, they could have their caps on. They can't do anything when the market is volatile like this. And,
they can't do anything, but they can. But you see, here is the important thing. Leadership today demands that we stay on top of data, information, and share with constituents as we find out these things, and be honest and truthful. So I'm hoping that they're going to touch bases with us and let us know what's happening.
Well, I mean, if we're talking about real-time information and status update, you should have all this. Whoever, what's his name, director of
Dawson is his name.
At the executive branch. They should have all that information because that's on the internet.
True. True.
They should be keeping up with what's happening with the Financial Times.
True.
On a daily basis.
True. And maybe the governor might just surprise us and give us an update with his speech this evening. Never know.
Well, I want to know how many Virgin Islanders are actually going to listen to that, or do they need to hear a state of the territory when all they have to do is drive around filing potholes, seeing that if you're a Sequoia, your loved ones, if for whatever reason, there's loss of life, to do an autopsy, the bodies have to be flown to St. Thomas.
My brother, do not underestimate. Do not underestimate Virgin Islanders. They will be listening, and they will be listening to make comparisons in terms of his campaign proposals, what he has accomplished thus far, and the true state of affairs here in the territory by driving around, by observing for themselves, by going to the hospital, seeing what's happening at the hospitals, by taking a look at our schools and education. Trust me, they'll be making the analysis.
Well, I mean, right now, I guess we can always hope for the best, and hopefully we're in an electoral cycle this year.
Mm-hmm.
How much of a change is that going to take place without accountability? I mean, if we keep doing the same thing every 2 years, every 4 years, more likely every 2 years because of the structure of the first branch of government, according to Article 1, Section 2, is one representative per district to have accountability for the district. Until the structure of the first branch of government at the legislature reflects their constituency, where they will be representing a district, so they can have accountability, so that they could be checks and balances. Because, I mean, isn't it a perfect example of what's taking place where there's no checks on the executive branch, meaning 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, the president, and because there's no checks from the bicameral Congress, that there is
why do we let me ask you, hold on, why do we have no checks?
We have no checks because
why?
Their party affiliation, they're going around with everything that's happening with
it is not an absence of checks and balances in the system, but it is the mindset of certain individuals who want to go along to get along.
Well, if that is their mindset is that to go along to get along. That means that there's no regulatory oversight, which is your job,
mm-hmm.
to keep a check on the executive branch.
All right.
And that you've delegated your duties and saying that we're not going to be legislators, we're just going to govern by executive orders, then
you are
you performing your duties.
you hit the nail on the head. And the same thing may be happening here in the territory. So that voices like your voice and the many other voices like you need to begin to put boots on the ground, whereby we go around to inform people on a one-to-one basis, just from community gatherings, where we can tell them, listen, man, this thing has not been working. We need to change the approach. We need to be informed in terms of what's been going on, and to find new approaches to doing the people's business. We can't continue to have service for some and leaving out the majority. Service must be for all parties involved. And what's been happening is that our elected officials have been narrowing the scope of their service to friends, family, and those supporters who are visible to them. The service must be to one and all, to the children, to the elders, to the in-between, to those who are disabled. Everybody must be attended to. And that's where we have failed. So I'm saying to you,
don't you think we could get them to be more accountable if they're saying, well, I live in this district that represents Freedom Warriors of Nada Mavoni, and if there's a road to be patched, there's the grass to be cut back so that you have sidewalks so you can walk on the side of the road, that the road needs to be striped, that there needs a bulb in this lamppost, that there needs another bin so that we won't have overflowing of garbage. Then when you go to this one individual, there's somebody that is responsible. So it's not like you have 7 individuals you call over, like, hey, I'm on this committee, I don't deal with that, No, you're accountable. And once you have accountability, then you will start having changes. But you're not going to have any accountability if you have it where this is the only place where we have representative form of government, where we have more than one representative per district, because like the old adage, too many times spoil the pot. If there's one person that is accountable or responsible for this area, then if you reside in this area, you know who to go to. And that is person helping to solve the problem if you know who to go to, instead of having to say, well, I don't deal with that. You gotta go to this person, you gotta go to that person. It doesn't make political sense.
I am in agreement.
Even the British.
I am in agreement with you, and I'm saying to you that right now the guys who are in there, they're operating by what we refer to as the psychology of the crowd. In a crowded situation where no one feels personally accountable, they can engage in the BS. But I'm saying to you, if we can convince the voters to elect free thinkers who are willing to think, or they demonstrate the willingness to think outside the box, then they can go in there and make that change, because we've been appealing to those in there to make the change, to have that true kind of representation that you're referring to, but they refuse to move because they're protected through the psychology of the crowd. There is no individual accountability.
The crowd, the electorate, they will have to be educated that they can vet the individual properly.
Yes.
Because unless you have proper vetting, then you have no idea. You're just going off a whim. Because I know this person, I know the name,
I agree.
I'm gonna give them a vote of support.
I agree.
But if they don't have solutions-based platforms to say, well, listen, this is what my specialty is. I'm gonna stay in this lane. Don't put me into this because I have no idea. I have to get counseling on this. I have to get consultation on this. Put me in something that I know, so I can hit the ground running. I can have the proper staffing, and we can address this one problem. Because if you have a myriad of problems, then you can't fix all the problems yourself. You just have to be focused and dedicated. And like I said, you have to be detail oriented in order to solve the problems. If you have a weed and you keep taking the weed and just cutting it to the top and not pulling up on the root,
you're going to keep doing the same thing over and over.
True.
Without getting the result that you want to have the weed removed.
Yeah.
So
we need
with education and educating the electorate.
I agree.
How can we come out for festival, jump up and drink rum, and for 2-3 weeks, whatever how long the festival season is, and then for the next 40 something weeks, you're suffering and you're suffering.
True.
It doesn't make sense.
We need a radical movement. And it begins with you, it begins with me, it begins with all the other voices who have been speaking on radio. Let's put the boots on the ground.
Well, how do you get the young engaged? How do you get those that are now 18, 19, 20, 21?
You get them engaged.
Who don't think at this point in their life politics concerns them. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's different here in America with what's going on with ICE. You know, you can see what's going on in Minneapolis, what took place in Chicago, LA, DC, and around the country, especially the democratic states and cities, where now you're seeing young people, you're seeing the whole demographic from teenagers all the way up to senior citizens, because they see what's taking place, where they're actually losing I guess we will call it the democracy, and the fact that what's taking place now, that they're losing their rights and privileges based on the rule of law, which is the U.S. Constitution, and the politicians are going to violate the law. The people who are elected to make the laws, if they're going to be the law breakers,
Let me share this with you. Believe you me, the young people in the territory, they're taking note. They're observing. Some of them are online speaking out against what has been happening here in the territory. And you have many who are offline. So the whole idea is that we gotta reach those who are online in terms of mobilization. And then we have to find activities offline in the communities to reach those who are offline, so as to bring about mobilization. Once we mobilize them, they will participate. And we can move to make this happen. We're gonna stay in touch because my time is fast spent.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Say no more. You take care, and I'll try to call earlier. I mean, the reason we have the hours different because of daylight savings. So I just didn't realize that. But anyhow, that's a time, Baptiste. You take care, and I'll monitor and see what's going on as far as with the GRS special purpose vehicle bond with the crash of the Japan bond market to see how it will affect the GRS bonds going forward. Anyhow, you take care.
You stay safe, stay covered, and remain indoors. Don't go out of the ice.
Definitely.
All right.
All right. Take care.
You take care. Bye. All right, folks. Is that wrong? No. Colin. Yeah. All right, folks. We've fast spent the time which was allotted to us, and so I'm going to be signing off. I just want to say that there were some things I wanted to get into. I didn't get into that today, but I'm going to pick up on that next week, Monday, when I come in. I'm going to pick up from there because I started talking about the Rastafarian movement and medicinal as opposed to recreational use of marijuana and some of the research I've done. And so we'll pick up on that when I return here next week. And meanwhile, folks, don't forget that I want you guys to tune into the program Choices on Friday evenings from 7 till 8:30. Yes, we try to get young people involved in that, but the adults, the senior citizens, they're not omitted or prohibited from being a part of it, because after all, it's community. So I want you guys to check in with us on Friday, this coming Friday, 7 o'clock on the same radio station. We'll reconnect then. So until that time.
Yeah. be there in a second. I just locked him off by the transmitter.
All right. Until that time, you guys stay safe, be blessed. Give thanks and praises, and we'll reconnect on Monday of next week, and then, of course, Friday of this week. A little bit of technical difficulties here, but see you guys.